No matter where you travel in Illinois, historic bridges are part of the landscape. These quiet monuments to transportation and engineering history are a link to the past that both visitors and residents can enjoy. At the turn of the 20th century, Chicago's bridges were in dire need of renovation. Low on funds, the city could not address bridge upkeep or necessary replacements. In the summer of 1898, the Chicago Department of Public Works conducted a series of inspections of highway spans led by the city's head of municipal engineering, John Erickson. He found bridge conditions citywide to be unacceptable and noted that unless attended to immediately, some structures could prove hazardous to the public. Many of the bridges that needed replacing were swing bridges with center piers. Not only were they in a state of disrepair, but federal investigations on river navigation indicated an opposition to this bridge type. The center pier obstructed water traffic. Modern river traffic was requiring more and more space in the channel. As the size and number of vessels traveling the rivers and canals increased over time, the only viable option was to replace swing bridges with an open span design. In the fall of 1899, numerous bridges were slated for closure. One area that was particularly impacted by the closures was Goose Island. Goose Island was created in the 1850s when the Chicago Land Company purchased a tract of land to the east of the Chicago River. William B. Ogden, a major shareholder in the company as well as Chicago's first mayor, directed the dredging of a canal on this tract of land along the river between North Avenue and Chicago Avenue. The clay from the dredging went to brickyards or for use in landfilling. The canal itself both created a more direct route for river traffic to travel and provided more waterfront property for the manufacturing industry. According to the Chicago Tribune, by 1885 the area was booming with industry, which included 13 lumber yards, 11 coal yards, 5 stone yards, 2 sand yards, and 2 grain elevators with 1.75 million bushel capacity. By the late 1800s, 5 bridges crossed the Chicago River and the North Branch Canal onto Goose Island from the surrounding city. 2 on Halsted Street, 2 on Division Street, and 1 on Weed Street. These 5 bridges allowed the companies on the island to offload wares, and since the island was primarily industrial space, the bridges also allowed workers safe passage to and from their jobs. According to articles published in 1899, however, only 2 bridges were open at the time: South Halsted and West Division. Of these 2, South Halsted was the only bridge deemed travel-worthy, as reports indicated the West Division Street Bridge would soon be closed due to a rotting center pier. Having only one safe bridge to cross was greatly problematic for the manufacturing industry on Goose Island. In addition to the inspections, Erickson also began work on designing a bridge specifically for Chicago. Beyond safety concerns and the need to evolve to accommodate ever larger water vessels, Chicago was paying royalty fees for the use of bridge designs created by outside companies such as the Strauss-Bascule Bridge Company and the Scherzer Company. By law, contracts for projects of this size were required to be advertised, then bid on. The Scherzer Company, local to Chicago, would consistently be the low-bidding contractor for bridge projects. However, they would frequently go over budget and charge the royalty fees for their bridge designs separately from the bid price. Then, during the summer of 1904, a delegation of city officials from Michigan visited the Chicago Drainage Board offices to inquire about a recently built Scherzer Company bridge. During that meeting, it was discovered that the bridge plans Chicago was paying $18,000 for had been offered to the Michigan city for only $5,000. After further investigation, Chicago city officials received word from New York City, Cleveland, and Boston that they had paid $7,000, $5,000, and $6,000 respectively for bridge designs from Scherzer. Not only was the Scherzer Company consistently going over budget on bridge projects in Chicago, they were charging the city more than double for the bridge designs. Having reviewed the literature on movable bridges built in the United States and Europe, Ericsson, with the assistance of his fellow engineer Thomas Pilfelt, found that the design of the recently built Tower Bridge in London would best meet the requirements for the Chicago River and its associated branches. Built in 1894, the Tower Bridge is referred to as a bascule bridge. Bascule comes from a French word meaning weighing machine or seesaw. The structure is a counterweighted, double-leaf, fixed trunnion bascule with below-deck operating machinery designed to raise the roadway for river traffic. Some of the benefits of the counterbalanced lever principle of the Tower Bridge were that it relied on simple operating machinery that was easy to manufacture and install. Best of all, this bascule mechanism was patent-free, so it wouldn't incur royalties. After a rigorous review by independent engineers and the public, Ericsson's design was tested. Variations of the design were constructed starting with the 95th Street and East Division Street bridges that opened in 1903. The Clybourne Street Bridge, later Cortlandt Street, opened in 1902 and included further design edits. At half the length, the Clybourne Street Bridge would be used as a prototype for the West Division Street Bridge. The West Division Street Bridge over the North Branch of the Chicago River opened in June of 1904. The substructure was constructed by Fitzsimmons and Connell Company of Chicago, and the superstructure was completed by Romeheld and Gallery. It is 260 feet long and has two symmetrical halves. Each half contains a fixed, steel girder approach section allowing for one lane of traffic in each direction, and a movable leaf supported by three identical arching steel trusses. The 7-panel trusses are modified versions of a Pratt truss. The configuration of their tail ends differs from the standard highway Pratt truss, allowing for a minimized counterweight pit footprint. The primary operational feature of the bridge is a 16-inch diameter cast steel trunnion at each leaf's center of gravity. This rotating axle lifts and lowers the movable leaf. Since the leaves were counterbalanced, little power was needed to lift and lower the bridge. 37 horsepower motors were mounted on steel platforms beneath the approach on either end of the bridge. The motors could be engaged independently from operator houses on both sides of the river. Over the years, the West Division Street Bridge required minimal maintenance. Most repairs involved the replacement of machinery or wood decking. In the mid-1950s, the wood plank decking was replaced with steel grids. In the late 1960s, the original operators' houses were updated with a more modern design. During the 1980s, Chicago's Department of Public Works considered replacing the bridge with a new double-leaf bascule bridge. Though plans were prepared for the project, it was never funded. Despite the success of the design in the early 1900s, the logistics of river transport evolved. By the 1920s, Chicago's river shipping patterns underwent a significant change. The Chicago River and Navy Pier began to lose traffic in favor of the deep harbor at the mouth of the Calumet River in South Chicago. By 1971, Mayor Richard J. Daley called for the closing of many Chicago river spans, especially on the city's north side. Permanent closure meant saving the city money on the upkeep of lift machinery. In the 1990s, the West Division Street Bridge underwent major renovations as part of a larger project initiated by Mayor Richard M. Daley. The project aimed to declare Goose Island as a planned manufacturing district to protect the area's enduring industrial and manufacturing sector against redevelopment. At the time, the West Division Street Bridge was almost completely rebuilt with new structural steel. However, the last time the bridge had opened for river traffic was the early 1980s. During the renovation, like other bridges on the north side, West Division was rendered immovable. The trunnions and lifting mechanisms were left in place, but the leaves were welded together and the operators' houses were cleared of control equipment. To address the deteriorating condition of the no longer movable bridge and to adapt to the city's growth, the Chicago Department of Transportation decided to replace it. The project will improve access to businesses and properties across Goose Island and reduce congestion. The new design includes additional vehicle and bicycle lanes to facilitate traffic flow and improve commuter safety. For over 120 years, the Chicago-type bascule bridge was a vital part of the city's infrastructure. It provided the necessary space for a growing river shipping industry and was a much-needed improvement for road travel through the city, both for the manufacturing industries and residents. With 53 bridges built using Erickson and Pilfeld's design, this bridge has left an indelible mark on the Chicago cityscape. Plans are in place to salvage components of the old bridge and display them at the McCormick Bridge House and Chicago River Museum. Modern transportation needs place a variety of demands on infrastructure. A delicate balance is required when seeking to preserve historically significant structures and maintaining safe transportation and shipping corridors. Though it's not practical to save every historic bridge, it is possible to document them so that their importance can remain part of our state's story for generations to come.